So this is your one meeting sign-in page. Your URL is at the top right here. It's https mcagov.primegov.com. When you enter that into your URL up here, you'll have this login page. You are going to notice that there are three possible ways to log in. You will be signing in with Microsoft. So unfortunately, we can't hide these, but just keep that in mind that you want to use this sign in with Microsoft in order to get into the system. I'm going to click on sign in to log in. And this is going to take me to my one meeting dashboard right on the left-hand side. On the left-hand side here are menu items, and on the upper right-hand corner here is where you'll see your username. I just want to show you a couple of things before we move on to filling out the form. And we'll talk about those right here. So where your username is, if you click on the drop-down, you'll see three options: account, release notes, and sign out. So this is where you can sign out. This is where you can view release notes with any of the changes that have happened recently in the system. And then this is where you can access your account information. So I'm going to take a look at your account information first. Pretty basic. On this first section right here, your user profile, it has your user profile information. When you look at this, you'll probably see your position on your department in here, perhaps your division. But really, there's not much of a need for you to go in here for really any reason, but just to know this is where this is, pulling your name and all that information in here. You will see this password tab. This is not something you're going to use since you're using Microsoft to log in. This password is only used for the one meeting password if you were using that. So even though it's there, just keep in mind this is not something you're going to use. We're going to skip on over signature, but I am going to touch on delegation. So in one meeting, when an item, goes to you through workflow, if there is a possibility that if you receive an item that you may be out, on vacation for some reason, what you can do is if you are out for a week or two on vacation, and you don't want, those any items that are coming to you for approval to get lost in the shuffle or just sit out there, you can add somebody who is able to approve on your behalf while you're gone. And we call those delegatees. So adding a delegatee is super easy. All you do is click on add delegatee. And here you would choose the user. I'm gonna put Mary Michael, my poor victim here. So I'm gonna be out next week. I'm gonna ask Mary Michael if she can handle any items that come for me, for me to look at, for my approval. So I would put her name in here. I would put the start date. Oh, there we go. That I'm going to be out. So next Monday, starting at, we'll say 8 o'clock in the morning, and ending on Friday at, say, 5 o'clock at night. Mary Michael's going to have access to approve items on my behalf while I'm gone. So what that actually means is she will receive an email of an item. Anytime an item comes to me, I'll get an email letting me know that there's an item out there in one meeting waiting for me to look at and approve. Mary Michael would also get that same email. And in addition, she would also see that email in her list of tasks to complete. And we'll take a look at those tasks shortly. But just, kind of like somebody acting as a substitute while you are out for vacation, so that you're not worried about, items being held up waiting for you to come back and to be approved. You might add multiple people. So if you do, you know that one of your colleagues is especially busy, you can add multiple people to this list, and they'll both have access to do that. These dates are important in that once this 5 o'clock p.m. rolls around on Friday, any items that come to me, they will no longer also go to Mary Michael. So it is, a limit there. At that point, she is no longer responsible for those. So just an example, and then also be aware too that if there's a situation where you are somebody who might have to approve some items, somebody as an administrator can go in on your behalf and also or can go in and assign a delegatee for you. So that is what our delegatee is. I'm going to take this out so we don't say anything to her by accident. And now I'm going to go back over to my left-hand side of my screen where my menu is. I'm going to go to forms. So keep in mind that you might not see all the items that I see right now, but you will definitely see this forms option. When I click on forms, this is going to take me to my forms page. On here, I'm going to see my staff report. I'm going to click on staff report. And this is going to open up my form that I need to complete. So with our forms, we always work top to bottom, left to right. The reason being that some of these fields that we choose from are, the options are determined based on what the prior field has, what's been picked in the prior field. So the first thing I'm going to do is click a committee. So I'm just going to go the governing board. Over here is my meeting type. So this is where I can choose the meeting type. Now this one just has a regular meeting. If you have a committee that has, multiple meetings, like maybe a regular meeting or a special meeting, you'll see those two options display. Once I choose my meeting type, my meeting date is going to populate the dropdown based on any upcoming meeting dates. So I can see one here on Friday. I'm going to choose that one. So I'm going to be adding an item to my governing board regular meeting for Friday the 17th. Once I make those decisions, I'll come over here to my meeting section and I'll choose the section that this item should fall under. Now you'll see we have quite an extensive list here. The gray ones that are, gray headers are just what they are, they're headers, so you can choose underneath those. And you'll see these are broken down into, quite a bit of detail here. So you can come in here, choose the appropriate meeting section that this should fall under. And then back over here is where you'll choose the department. So what department is this report from? So do executive director here. And then who is this from? So this is where you would enter the name of the person that this item is coming from, or this report is coming from right here. It is free text, so you can pipe in whatever you want. Down at the bottom here, you have a choice of different report logos to pick. So depending on which logo you pick, this is what will display on your form. This one right here. And then as you're going through, you may have noticed too, and I neglected to say this, that you have the little red asterisk, which is kind of the international sign for required field. So anywhere you do see that red asterisk, it is a required field. Coming down here, this is where you would put in this information. This one's very basic. You just type in here. Down here, our summary, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a additional options right here in this field. This is what we call a CK editor. And the CK editor allows you, if you need to maybe bold or underline or italicize part of your summary or part of this text, you can do that in here. You can also add in numbered lists, or you can add bullet points in, very basic information. One thing that I will let you know is if you are somebody who likes to copy and paste like I do, if you're copying from one document and pasting it into here, sometimes the formatting from that document you're copying from will also come over. And that can sometimes make the form look a little odd if it has that formatting from that previous document. So if you do a copy and paste, one of the easiest things to do afterwards is to highlight this information, and you'll see that little T and that X there. If I hover over that, that says remove formatting. So that will remove any formatting that comes over with that copy and paste you do. So I would highly recommend doing that, just because you don't want to be, having different fonts or different font sizes in here. The fonts and the font sizes are determined by the template in the system. So you don't have to worry about changing any of that information here. Watch, you would just continue on down here. And as I'm typing in here, are there any questions about this that we just looked at?
This is Stacy. I have a question.
Yes.
I don't need my video. Just, I mean, I think this might be obvious, but I just want to make sure I understand. If you go back up to the right in here. So this is essentially, and maybe this is a question for Mary Michael, but this is essentially where, if we look at an old staff report, this is where the, it would say action, and have like like this is the part that's going to be placed on the actual agenda document. Like, is this the subject line, Mary Michael?
Yes, this is based on what in our current template is kind of goes at the top, the summary action, and yes, what goes on the agenda pages.
Okay, so this is the okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's the action. I'm just going to keep going down here because these are required. I'm going to have to type something in here, but I have no imagination, so I'm just typing what goes in. Oops. Okay. And then down here, it looks slightly different in that we have a table in here. So this is where you would add any of that information that you need to put in here, the date, and then the action taken. I'm just going to put something in here to hold. As with any sort of table, you can always, right click and add additional rows if you need to. Down here, will procurement process be needed? Yes, if there is. If you choose no, it'll type in an NA in here. Down here is the requested motion. Now you will see this is not a required field, but I'm just going to type something in here quickly.
And I'll just interject that we're actually going to remove this section. This is a duplicate of what was above, so we're gonna remove this because we have the requested action above.
Okay, there we go. And then down here is fiscal impact. Yeah, type. And then down here we have our committee names. Perfect committee. That in staff contact goes down here. I'm just gonna put my name in here just as an example. And then finally, as we get to the end of this, we'll see that we have attachments. So to add an attachment, you would just click on add attachment here. It's going to ask you to either drag a file or click to upload. And so if you click to upload, you can do a control click. If you have multiple attachments, and put them in here. That's right there. And they'll display here. If you want to delete an attachment, you can just click on the little delete box right there, the little trash can, and just keep that right here. One thing you will notice is the attachment does not populate this the name does not populate this attachments box. So you do have to go in here and put that attachment name in this section right here. Once all of this looks pretty good, you can go in here and you can submit this. It's going to take a moment. It's just going to give you a message that the form is being submitted, and just to, hold tight for a second. Just so you know that this is a two-step process. So we go in and we actually fill out our form and then we submit it. That's our first step. Our second step is then we have to go in, revisit the form, open the form up, and then determine what we need to do, if anything, and then decide where we're sending that. So I've completed my first step. You can say that my request was submitted. Next up would then be to go to my tasks. My tasks are where I'm going to see any of my forms that are waiting for me to approve. So I can either click right here and view my tasks, or if I have another request, I can submit another request and go through the process again. In this case, I'm going to take a look at the task that I just completed. So over here on my left-hand side, you may have noticed this big red number here. This is where my tasks are stored. I can see that I have actually 36 tasks waiting for me to complete.
Susan, can I ask a question on the form real quick before we leave?
Absolutely.
This is partly a question for you, maybe partly for Mary Michael. So like I noticed, for example, there's the discussion section mandatory, but I know the way we have it now, and maybe we're trying to change that, is that that section might be called discussion, or it might be called update, or it might be called next steps. Is there, so how difficult would it be to change this? Is this something that you'd be able to do, Mary Michael, or do we have to get some admin permission to change up the forms, just in case we didn't want it to be called discussion, for example?
No, I mean, unfortunately, we had to choose a name for it. So the most generic name is discussion. So I would think that if, for example, you wanted to talk about next steps for your item, you would kind of put that in the body of the information in that section.
Like a subhead.
Yeah.
No, I got, okay. I mean, I get that part. I'm just wondering how flexible or inflexible it will be in general, but okay. I put it in discussion.
Yeah.
Head back to my tasks. If mine went down a little bit there, open that up. And then this is going to take me to my workflow tasks. Down here, I'll see it says general workflow. If I expand this, it's going to show any items that are hanging out with me that are waiting for me to approve and move along. If you are, depending on what your roles are, you may also have access to view all workflow tasks or access to view just your department tasks. So as I kind of toggle between those, we might not see it as much here, but yet you can see that I can see Alex right now has a task assigned that is not assigned to me, but because I'm seeing all workflow tasks, I can see those tasks. And then department tasks. If there are any tasks that are assigned to my department, I would be able to see those too. Go back to all of mine. Expand my workflow. And one thing to be aware of too, if you by any chance go back to your office and you log in, or if you're logging in now, if there's nothing under your task, if there's nothing out there waiting for you to approve, then you won't even see this general workflow header. So just don't be worried if you go in and you don't see anything in there. I'm going to expand that. And this. And then what we'll see on the headers on the top of the screen here, on the left-hand side, we'll see the committee. You'll see a drop down. So if we have different committees in there, we can, check to only see, the tasks for certain committees. We could also narrow it down for meeting dates. So if I only want to see items for specific meeting dates, I can do that. The subject right here. So as I go through, I can narrow down and I can filter, and you'll see my filters up here. And I can remove my filters by clicking on these. So I can go through and sort and filter with my headers at the top of the screen here. It will show my committee. It'll show the meeting date. Here's the subject right here, the department, the task name. So this is called the originator review. So anytime you enter an item into the system and you save it, it's going to show up under your tasks as originator review. Who it's assigned to. In this case, you would see your name, logged as PrimeGov, so I see me, and then when it was created. So all that information's in there. If I scroll to the right, I'll see that there is a little eyeball right here. And if I click on this, this is going to take me to my review task. So this is where I can go. If I need to make changes to my document, I can make changes here if I need to change wording or verbiage, but this is where I'd also go to move this on to the next step of the workflow. The first thing I want to show you is how we can make changes to the document. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we will see our board memo. And if I click on the drop down to the right, I'm going to see that I have several options. replace attachment, download, mark confidential, rename, version history, and edit. Now, I don't know if I can get somebody on the team over there who can maybe open up one meeting, and as I'm kind of going through this, if possible, could you open up this
Yes, I can do that.
thank you, task. While we're doing that, just so you know, the option to edit, you have Office 365. When using that Office 365, it's going to allow you to edit this document directly, in your browser. You're not going to have to download it and then re-upload it again. I unfortunately can't show you that because I'm not part of your organization. And if I try and click on edit, it's going to yell at me and tell me that I don't have access. But just so you have an idea of how this works, we can just, if you don't want whoever's going to share out, that'd be perfect. I appreciate it. You can see what it looks like here. And while we're waiting for that, down here we'll also see any attachments. So as I click on these, you can notice it turns dark blue, and that will then display in my field right over here. With the attachments, same thing. I can download an attachment. If I need to replace it with another attachment, I can do it. The mark confidential, I recommend that you not use that. That can sometimes make things a little bit difficult. So even though it's in there, don't use that. Rename, though, you could rename this attachment if you needed to, and then if you needed to delete it from your list, you could remove that from here. At the same time, you can also add attachments. So if you submitted this form and you didn't have an attachment at the time that you submitted it, or you realize you need to add one after the fact, all you do is click on the add up here. The system's going to give you 3 ways to add that attachment: at the top of the list, above the selected attachment. So since this is selected, it would go right above sample attachment, or place it at the bottom of the list. So really, depending on what you choose here, is going to determine where your attachment is going to display on your list over here on the left-hand side. However, it is just as easy to drag and drop. So you do have the options to pick and choose, but if you don't have a truckload of attachments, it's easier just to throw it in somewhere and then just drop it into where it needs to go. And then you can always go in and make a change to that. If I want to rename it, there we go. So while we're waiting, on the right-hand side, you can see this is our board memo. So all the information that we entered in here is displaying. And if everything looks good to go, then you can just go on to the next step, and I'll show you how to do that. However, if you do need to make changes, that's what we'll show you next, is how to go ahead and make some changes to this document, and the easiest way to do that. Let me know when you are good to go. I appreciate it.
Are you to edit the document?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, are you open? Are you able to open that up and share out?
You have to stop screen share first.
Oh, I always forget that. You know what? I never use, my apologies. I never use Zoom. I'm used to Teams. Thank you. You just grab and go.
And I need access to be able to.
Oh, yeah, Steph, can you give her?
Already done.
Thank you. Okay. I appreciate that.
All right.
Perfect. Okay. So you can see Michael's screen right there. You'll see that under the under the workflow tasks, she has access to view everything, so she can see the one I just created. So she's going to go open that up. And now to open this memo, if you have to make a change for some reason to do that, it's very simple. You're going to click on your options, click on edit. And this is going to really open this up, and I guess I call it like the Microsoft Word browser. So as this opens up, you can make changes in here. However, I would probably recommend that you not do that. first of all, you have limitations to, what you have access to in Word on this section. And we have had some customers that have gone in and they've made changes here. But then when they save it, when it saves, it looks, the formatting goes kind of wonky. So I would recommend that you open it here and then take a second step by going over to the editing option on the far right-hand corner of the screen, which is right. Yep. If you click on the editing, you'll have the option to open that up in the desktop app, which is the very bottom. And this is going to give you the full functionality of, open up in Word, the full functionality of Word. If you're one person, if you use multiple monitors, this always seems to open up on the monitor that I'm not using at the moment. So you may have to track that down if you're a 2 or more person. Perfect. So this is what your board memo looks like in the Word document. You can see everything we put in there, all of our different sections. Mary Michael, would you mind just clicking on, say, the summary would probably be good, a good example there. So you notice that when you click on some of these sections in here, there's a little box around them with the name of that particular section. So it says summary. This is called a content control. So anything that goes in this box is stored in the One Meeting system. So we do want to make sure that if you're going in and you're editing any of your text in here, that you are working within the content control here. So really all you need to do, America, if you wouldn't mind, just like type something in there, or just make it bold or something or red. But you can see that, that you just want to make sure that you're working within that. And, in this case, I think most of these do have content controls. Not every single field may have them, but if they do have it, work within it. You'll notice too that as she goes through and she makes changes, at the top of her screen, the changes are automatically being saved. So there's no worry about going in and saving this separately. It will save for you automatically. There you go. Perfect. So you can see, like, yeah. Yes, so yep, you can go in, make changes, updates, whatever you need to do in here. If you have a situation where you need to put in some sort of graph or some sort of picture, those can be added outside the content controls. You don't need to put those within the content controls. So, if you ever do need to put something in there, you can just go, just like you do in Word generally, go to your insert and then find what it is you want to put in there and then add that in. Perfect. That's one I always choose. It must be the standard one. And again, as she's going through and changing these, it is updating and saving for you. Just pretty much it's Word. It's just make sure that you're working within the content controls if you're adding text. Any questions about this? And I always forget, and we do, if you're somebody who uses track changes, you can enable track changes in this. It is a Word document, so you can put that in and use track changes in here. Okay. So really, once your changes are done, all you need to do is close this out.
Can I ask a question, Susan?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So to Elizabeth's question, if we change the name of the discussion section right here, would that screw up the system?
No, that's not a content control, so that should be okay. I mean, it's not, it's just, if you're just changing the header there. So if you need to make it next steps, you could do that.
Okay, well, there you go. See, I'm still learning too.
Yeah, if you click below that, because I think that's where, the discussion, that's where it's the content control is that discussion. So that's, so it's going to show, it should be fine.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. So save that when you're ready. Oh, I'm sorry, before you do that, actually, I'm sorry, don't save it. You don't need to save it. But before we go on, to the top of the screen too, you may have noticed that there's an item and it says section number, item number next to each of those. That's called a magic code. So the system's automatically going to populate that down the road. So just make sure that you're not making changes to that or updating that. Once everything is set to go, the section number and the item number of this board memo will display in there. So, okay, and then once she's good, all you do is just close out Then I'm going to grab that again. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. Can you see my screen again? Okay. So here's my attachment. Let me just refresh. Sometimes when you make the change, you may have to do a quick little refresh to see those changes, but there we go. You can see all the changes that were made on that document. One thing I do want to point out too is that I did add another attachment in here. So if you ever are adding another attachment, you would have to go into the attachment section and add that name in there too. It does not automatically pull over. So that is your board memo and the changes you can make. Now just be aware too that you can only make this, you only have this edit option available in the board memo because that is a system generated document and that's indicated by that little paper icon right there. These options right here, these are just attachments. So anytime you needed to make a change to an attachment, you would have to, upload a new one and replace it. Any questions about this right here? Now, this is only needed if you need to make a change. If you don't need to make a change, you can just skip right over that and just go right over to your task options and go to send to department head. And when you do that, that's going to just send this off to your department head and it'll be off your task list. You won't have to worry about that. However, before I send this off, I also want to show you another option that we have, which is called peer review. So, there may be a case where maybe you've submitted a board memo and you just have a question about something that maybe you would like somebody or, have someone proofread or check something before you send it off to the department head. That's what we can use the peer review for. The peer review allows you to send this board memo to, one person or multiple people, so they can look at it, make changes if they need to, and then send it back to you. So it's a way to kind of get, a second opinion if you need to. So if you have a question about something, you can send it off to someone else. Now to do a peer review, so let's say, for example, I have a question about this. I'm like, oh, I want you to check, check to make my requested action looks good. Make sure that looks correct. I can go up here to my task options. I can create a peer review group. So the first thing I have to do is tell the system, who am I sending this to? Remember, I'm just gonna put you in here again. You don't have to show up, but I'm just gonna show it so we can set. I'm gonna send it to Mary Michael. So I'm gonna put her name in here, add her. If I need to add other people, I can go in here and add other people. And you will notice that as I start to type in names, it'll narrow down to just show those people who have those names. So Marissa and Mary Michael, I'm going to send this off to both of them to look at. When you put your users in here, or put the people you're sending this off to look at, you will see the option to adjust permissions. Do not touch that. The permissions are set as they should be. So even if you're somebody who likes to kind of click around and explore, don't do that here. If you start to adjust permissions, that could cause some unexpected results in the workflow. So I've decided I need Mary Michael and Marissa to take a look at this before I send this to my department head. So I added both their names. And I'm going to click on close. I just don't want to send this to them out of the blue. I want to put a comment in there. So over on the left-hand side, under my comments, I have an option to type a comment. There are two types of comments. There are internal comments and private comments. The internal comment is anyone who sees this item or encounters this item through the workflow process can see this. Can you check my requested action? There we go. I put a comment in there, save that. Anyone will be able to see this. The private comment is only for me to see, and I can use this as a reminder to add, third attachment. That only I can see. So Internal comments, anyone can see. Private comments, only I can see. As I add those in, I can always edit them or delete them if I need to. But this is the internal comments are handy if you're going to send something off to peer review. So I put my comment in, I've chosen my peer review group, and now I'm going to click on peer review. And what that's going to do is that's going to send this board memo to Marissa and to Mary Michael. They will get an email letting them know that there is, you know, an item out there waiting for them to approve or to look at. If I go back to my workflow task, that is now off my workflow task because it's no longer assigned to me. So since I moved that along in my peer review, it's no longer displaying. However, if I look at all the workflow tasks, I will then see my item is now assigned to Marissa and Mary Michael. So they will get that notification. They'll see this item in their tasks. They can then open that up. They'll see, and well, because I'm in this Prime Gov, I will see my personal comments. They would not see that, but they would see this information here. They can take a look at it. They can do the same thing that I did. They can edit it. They can make changes. They can add attachments, remove attachments. So they have full access to this board memo. They can then put a comment in here to send it back to me, saying it looks good. And then under task options, they have the option to return with comments. So it's the only thing they have. They can't move it on to department head. They can't send it anywhere else. They can only send it back to me. So the peer review is very, very simple. It's to one person and then back to the person who sent that to them originally.
Can I make a comment, Susan?
Yes, ma'am.
Just because we're all going to be learning this new lingo, workflow, peer review, things like that. So that's just kind of goes with the nature of what the software is, and our natural workflow that we've always operated under is we've written that into the system. So it'll go from the staff member who put in the report automatically to their department head, then to the review process, and then finally to the clerk for compilation. But that doesn't mean that you can't have other people review it, like we've just talked about with peer review, before you kind of start that natural workflow process. And for the managers and department heads specifically, because we sometimes have different roles, sometimes you're a reviewer of some things, sometimes you're the approver, sometimes you're the author. You can, like for Stacy, for example, if you can go in and start an item and be an author, but if you want someone else to peer review it first and add sections, like that's when you do the peer review, but then you'll submit it for, basically review, which will be you. So you can have those different roles depending on what your role is for that item. So I just kind of wanted to, it might be a little confusing at first, but I just want to make sure we have all those functionalities built in, and I wanted people to know that.
Thank you, Mary Michael. Are we going to have kind of like a how-to, like a definitions guide or a process guide, or just like a workflow map or anything like that for folks to kind of navigate our way through this?
I do have a very general guide that kind of takes you through the steps. I'd be more than happy to send to you. And then if you need to update that to make your work for your organization, feel free.
That'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So now that was sent back to me, so that you can see that item is back in my list of tasks to do now. If everything's good to go, I can go back in if I need to. And I can go to my task options and I can send to department head. So that's one way to do it. However, I can also, if I go back to my tasks, over here, there is a double arrow and it says quick route task. So I can click on this and then just send that directly to department head. So I think Mary Michael said yesterday that some of you, you're good to go. You just need to send that off. Like you don't need to go back and review it. You know, it's all good. If that's the case, then you can just skip having to open that up and do the long way. You can just go right here to the quick route, and then that would give you the option to send to the next step. And then again, depending on where you are in the workflow process, what your step is, an originator can just send to the department head, but then right now in the department head review, they'll have access to return to the author for edits. They can send to the public affairs manager, or they can send to legal counsel. So depending on where you are in this whole, process, you'll have different options there. I would recommend that in the very beginning, as you're kind of getting used to the system, it probably wouldn't hurt to open that task item up each time, just so you get familiar with what's in there. So that's always the option. Open in the
I have a
task.
question. I have
Yeah.
a quick question. I saw that you could send it to legal counsel, which is good because that's typically where I would need to send my normal stuff that if I have a board item. Does it notify you once they've like blessed it or approved it, or how do we know it's okay to send to, like, I can send to Stacy for her final review?
So I'm sorry, run that by me one more time. So it's
So like, for example, when
yeah.
I set mine up, Stacy would be my final person to review that, but I typically would send it to legal counsel for review before doing that. So the version it gets is already blessed by legal, but when we send it to legal on using that little notation that you had on here, does it tell us when they're done reviewing, or if they approve it or make changes or anything like that?
No, it's not going to tell you that. It's not going to say, hey, this has moved on. That no, unfortunately does not do that. So one of the ways you can look at that is looking at our reports. I'll show you that really quickly in a moment. But
Susan,
no,
but if she peer reviewed it to legal, when they were done with their peer review, wouldn't she get a notification?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it would come back to her.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I apologize. I was thinking it was in the department head review. You're talking about just as a originator, somebody who's creating this board memo.
Yeah, so if she's creating it, she wants legal to review it. She would peer review it to legal, and then once it got.
So I wouldn't use this feature right here that you're clicking on. I would use the peer review. Okay.
No, yeah, I apologize. I misunderstood. No, anytime you send something using that peer review, then once they send that back to you, you'll get a notification that the items were in there, and then you'll be able to see that in there. And any notes that they have typed in, they can, if they type them in the comment section, you can see those there. I apologize. I thought
no, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so coming over here, download task item. This will allow you to just download it. What that's going to do is download that item, the board memo and everything for you, in case you like to keep paper copies of everything. So that and the attachments. Down here's the workflow history. If you're an originator, you're probably not going to, deal with that too much. But if an item has, kind of gone back and forth between you and other people, the workflow history, what that does is that just tells you, where that item's been, who has approved it, when they approved it, all of our different steps. So for those of you who might be, in more the admin section and you're wondering what's being held up, this is where you could go to kind of see like who's sat on this item for a while. And then we have our route tasks. Over here on the far right, we have two options here. Those were through here. We can delete or we can reassign the task. Just be aware that delete is not deleting that item. So if you create an item or you submit your board memo and you're like, oh man, this is like the worst board memo I ever did. I don't know what I was thinking. I want to start fresh. Deleting this is not deleting that memo. This is just deleting the item from the workflow. It just takes it out of workflow. The item's still sitting out there. It's just not in workflow. And the other item here is the reassign task. So if something comes to you and for some reason it's not your wheelhouse, you're like, I was assigned this somebody sent this to me, but this is not, I have no experience with this. You can go in and you could reassign the tasks to somebody else. So all you would do is just put that person's name in. They would get that task. And they would have that in their queue then. So they would get a notice there's been a task reassigned and they would see that item in there. And they would be able just to continue that workflow process for you. Okay. One of the questions you just asked, which kind of brought to memory, is, where is the item in the workflow? On the left-hand side of the screen, you will have access to reporting. And there is a report in here that is called Agenda Forecast. The agenda forecast, we can run this from a range, from a start date to an end date for specific committees, 1 or 2, or specific meeting types. I'm going to click on just show report here. And what that does is that's going to show you, it's a forecast, any possible upcoming meetings and the items that are on those meetings right now. If they're in the workflow, it's going to tell you what step they're in the workflow. So this is right now in the department head review, it's sitting with department head, and then whoever the task owners are. So I think I manually changed these so they are displaying differently than probably your task owners would be, but it will show you that where that item is and any of the items that are in the upcoming meeting. So if you're ever wondering, you've submitted an item and you're like, I don't know where it is right now, you can run the agenda forecast report for that meeting and you can see where that is. And if an item has completed the workflow, the custom status and the task owners would be blank. And that's how you would know. Any questions about this? Honestly, your best bet is to get in there and just practice entering those tasks, entering those memos in and get experience with that. And, just know that, we're always here to help. So it's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get used to it, I think it should be pretty basic at that point, hopefully. Any questions? Any concerns? Do you want me to run over anything again? You're all like just traumatized at this point.
No, I think it's just going to take some hopping in and getting used to.
Get in there and, just start to play with it.
Thanks so much, ladies.
You have to hop off.
Just for the folks that are on staff today, just know we're working out the final details of building out the system and the tools, and we're looking forward to launching this real soon, and we're all just going to learn together. But I will say this, this software is used by a lot of other jurisdictions throughout the country, throughout the state. Maria was just telling us that when she came back from her conference with clerks from across California this week, that a lot of other people use the system and like it. So although it's a little daunting at first, please know it's tried and tested and used widely, and I think we're going to be really excited about it.
Yep, and we're here. If you have any questions, let Mary, Michael, Marissa know, and they'll let us know, and we'll work with you to make sure you're comfortable. Okay, so I know that you have other things to do today, so we can let you go. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.